Good morning, Bays, and Happy New Year. Welcome back to the Bay channel. I'm DJ, and today I want to talk to you guys about quiet time, specifically how to strengthen and amp up your quiet time game. So coming into the new year, strong as a believer starts with a strong relationship with God, and we develop that relationship through our quiet time. So for those of you that don't know what quiet time is, a little background, the way that I see quiet time is my quality time with God. You know, we have this space where it's just me and God, it's one-on-one, it's very intimate and private, and it's a chance for me to put aside all of my distractions from my day and just sit down, dive into the Word, get to know God, and welcome His presence in my life. And it's something that should happen consistently, but that's not always easy. So for those of you that are just getting into your quiet time, if you're just saved, congratulations. Whether it's your first time or if you're just getting back into it after a while, here's a few things to think about. So one thing that you want to think about when beginning your quiet time journey is to establish a routine. Some people don't really like routines, but I for one think that it's been really helpful in allowing me to stay consistent with my quiet time with God. I know it can be really easy to fall out of your quiet time because we're in a constant battle between our spirit and our flesh. And I know for a fact that my flesh doesn't always want to wake up 7 in the morning to spend time with God, and I know if I have my quiet time at night, sometimes my flesh falls asleep mid-prayer. But in my personal experience, a crucial part of sticking with that consistency with God is to create a routine. And it's in all the little things too. So some things you want to think about when creating that quiet time routine is what time of day do you want to set out that space? Some people like it in the morning, you know, maybe they have work later in the day. Some people like to have their quiet time at night. So whether it's in the morning and you start your day off with God, or it's at night you want to end your day with God, or even if it's somewhere in between where you need a breather from the stress of life, establishing at what point you want to spend that time with God is really important. And if you're a person that wants to have more than one quiet time with God, then all the power to you, that's amazing. But starting small is a good little habit to take. If it's you developing a habit in the morning, every morning you wake up and you say a prayer, you do your small little quiet time, or every night before you go to bed, whatever it is you need to do to maintain that consistency, do it. And then another thing that you want to think about is what kinds of things do you want to bring into that space and into that moment with God. It can be coffee or tea. I know I like to have my coffee on hand if I'm doing my quiet time in the morning, or tea if I'm doing it at night, because it really helps me focus on what I'm hearing, on what I'm reading. It really just gets me in the zone to have that, right? Do you want to have journals with you, a physical Bible, a Bible app? I personally recommend having a physical Bible like this one. This one is a journaling Bible. I feel like there's something so intimate about having a physical Bible with pages you can turn, because it's a very physical manifestation of God's word. You can turn the page, you can write in the margins. There's something very special about that. But if a Bible app is what you have and that's what's convenient to you, it's still the word, and there's still a lot of power in that. Another thing that you want to think about is where you want to have this quiet time. Quiet time is this intimate moment with God, right? It's you and God, and you want to be able to put away certain distractions. So for example, if that space is your bedroom because you have roommates or a family outside the door, then go ahead and have your quiet time there. Or maybe you use your room as like a working space and you want to kind of separate that. Then you have it in your backyard or in your balcony, in your kitchen, in your dining room, whatever space that you need to be in to pull yourself away from distractions and really allow yourself to hone in to what God is saying. So finding that quiet and private space is a very important part of establishing that routine and maintaining that consistency, because it gives you a place to ground yourself when you're doing your quiet time. So those are my tips on establishing a routine. And next I want to talk to you guys about how to start. You establish a routine in quiet time and you want to start. But where do you start? And how do you start? First of all, quiet time does not look the same for every single person. A little glimpse into my routine is kind of like this. I usually do my quiet time in the morning. Sometimes I'll do it at night, but preferably I'll start my day off first thing in the morning. And sometimes I'm still in bed when I start. But I like to start off when I wake up, when I open my eyes, with a prayer of thankfulness, usually thanking him for waking me up, for providing me a new day, for giving me breath in my lungs. Just starting off the day acknowledging his presence and acknowledging his faithfulness and everything he's done for me is just like a good way to get me pumped in the morning, to give me a thankful mindset instead of one full of complaints. Starting off prayerfully just really allows you to be in the right mindset of focusing on things above, focusing on Christ. But I'll slowly start to wake up. Maybe I'll brew a cup of coffee or tea like I did this morning. I love to have something to stimulate me, get me focused, some energy to hone in on what I'm doing. And I'll sit down here at my desk or on my bed right by my windowsill because there's a big space there. And then sometimes I'll turn on some instrumental worship music in the background, but if I feel like maybe that's a little too distracting, I'll sit in silence. And I feel like a lot of people can be kind of intimidated by silence, but I feel like there's just something super incredibly intimate about just sitting down with the Word of God. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but even though I can't hear God's voice physically, to be able to read it and almost envision or imagine God's voice as I'm reading the Word is very special to me. I feel like God seems to speak to me in that way. So don't be afraid of silence, first of all, but if you want to have some worship instrumental, that's what I like to do as well sometimes. So I'll just dive into the Word, I'll journal a little bit about what I'm feeling, what I'm praying about, my expectations for this day, my thankfulness throughout the season, whatever is in my heart that morning. I'll write it down. I'll write down some notes on the verse or the books that I'm reading that day, and I'll just allow myself to really soak in what's being said to me through the Bible. And then after that, I'll end with some worship. Sometimes I'll sing along to a song via Spotify, or I'll just worship a cappella. I mean, sometimes it can be a little awkward at first to worship a cappella, but once you get used to it, just being able to sing your heart out with no reservations is just, there's something really special about it, you know? Just the voices of the people. Worship leaders, you know what I'm talking about. So I mentioned earlier that process of diving into the Word. So what I mean here is, of course, reading your Bible. And reading the Bible is such a crucial part of getting to know God. You know, when you open up the Bible and you think about it, it's like his love letter to us, you know? And even if we can't, like I said, quite hear God's voice, like the good old days of burning bushes and sea splitting, we can read it in the words that are written here. So where do you start when you dive into the Word? One way I like to start reading my Bible during my quiet time is through devotions. A lot of the more convenient and accessible ways is through the Bible app. You know, like easy on your phone, you just pull it up. They have a bunch of different devotions that you can look up, catered to what you're going through, to what God is speaking into your heart. Not sponsored. I don't know, unless you want to. So if you guys want to go to the Bible app, there's a lot of options. It's the YouVersion Bible app, and they have a lot of different devotions that can point you to different verses or to different books in the Bible, or even to different Bible stories. So if you don't know where to start with the Bible because it's just an expansive book, devotions are a good way to start. Another way is to set goals of what you want to read. For example, if you want to read Proverbs for a month because there are 31 chapters and 31 days sometimes in a month, that's a good place to start. Or if your goal is to read the New Testament in a year, or if you're ambitious, read the whole Bible in a year, that's cool. But if you're just beginning, I would definitely suggest starting small. Once you start small, you can allow yourself to work your way up to grow more. And it just becomes easier when you allow yourself to accomplish small goals. Because I feel like it's encouraging when each day you're like, oh yes, I read this chapter. And then you can go on for a week and be like, wow, I read a chapter for a week straight. Instead of being like disappointed that you weren't able to finish the whole Bible in a year, you know? So it's okay to start small, especially if you're just starting out. But when you find yourself being a little inconsistent with your walk with God, or, you know, there's a bump in life, sometimes you lose track. But I think the beautiful part of it is as long as you strive to make your way back, then God will always welcome you with open arms. So don't be discouraged if you lose your way. Just try and get back on those small habits again and dive into the Word. Alright, so now that I've walked you guys through the 101s and the basics of quiet time, I'm going to talk about how to amp up your quiet time. Because there's so many different levels and different ways to go about your quiet time, especially once you start seeing your quiet time in different perspective. It doesn't always have to be just sitting at a desk reading the word and doing your prayers. We have the privilege of having this closeness with God, having this intimate relationship with Him, that yes, He is our Father, yes, He is sovereign, yes, He is the Creator, but He is also our friend. And when you allow yourself to open up your perspective to see God as a friend, then you open up the opportunity to make your quiet time a little more fun. Quiet time is kind of like hanging out with a friend, right? You're having this one-on-one, you're learning more about each other, you're hanging out. And that's a very casual way of thinking about quiet time, but I feel like it really opens the door to going about your quiet time in a more unique way, in a way that's more fun for you. Yes, it's a very precious and sovereign moment that you share with God, but once you allow yourself to view it in like, this is me spending time with God, this is me having my quality time with Him, then you can do so much more with that time. So one thing that you can consider doing is going out into nature, whether it's at a park. I know it's a little weird because of COVID, but consider going out into nature. Go to the beach, go to the park, go in your backyard. The way that I view God is He is my creator and He is an artist. When I'm out in nature, it just brings me closer to His artistry and His masterpiece. I get to look out as I'm doing my quiet time and see the beauty in what He's created. One place that I like to go to was Gliderport. I would go and watch the sunrise up there, and I would actually bring some of my paints to capture the scenery. So I would be doing my quiet time, listening to worship music while also painting. And that can also be a very interesting way to go about your quiet time, because our God is a creative God, and there's so much artistry to be found in who He is. If you like to paint, or if you like photography, or if you sing and you get to worship, there's all these things that you can do that will bring you closer to God. That's not considered conventional in the way that you're just reading the word or you're praying. Not just, sorry. Consider doing things that you like to do, but through the lens of a godly perspective, in a way that it's just you and God. Even though if you're painting or taking pictures, then you still have that intimacy with Him, that it's just you and Him, and you're not just doing it because you want to have fun. But when you're allowing what you do to be seen through how God has created you, that can be a beautiful way to have your quiet time. Another way that you can amp up your quiet time is maybe if you like taking care of plants. Shout out to you, Jet. Doing something like that can also be a way to spend time with God actively. Maybe you're listening to worship music, or maybe you're praying while you're taking care of your plants. Or maybe if you just want to talk to God through your journal. I know I have a lot of friends that love to journal. Shout out to Malia and Jonah. But when you allow yourself to write your feelings and write your prayers and write your thanks and even write your frustrations, that can also be a way of having your quiet time. You're not confined to doing your quiet time one certain way or one specific way just because I tell you this is how I do it, or someone tells you this is how you should do it. It's really, like I said, just spending time with your Creator, spending time with God and learning more about Him, and allowing yourself to open up your spiritual ears and your spiritual eyes to hear and see what He is doing, not only in your life but in the lives of other people and in the world. When you see your quiet time through that perspective, then you can really go through it at its full potential. And so I really hope that you guys learned something from today's video, and feel free to drop any questions you have. If you want to know more about how to establish that routine, if you want suggestions on where to start, if you want suggestions on what you can do to bring your quiet time to new levels, feel free to ask us. Get into contact with us, because we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to grow with you, and we'd love to see you guys grow. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you for coming back to the Bay channel, and we hope to see you soon. Bye!